Are you still looking at me?
Hey, what's going on, money folks? It's Money Adventure, the multitasker. You know the name. So how's it going with you guys? I made if you recall that I made a request, but I got a request by Fitzy Collins wanted to watch the Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters in the first season, and I also did a review not too long ago that was probably there was a few months back, and now I've been told that the season 2 just dropped on Netflix. So I was right about that fact that it will premiere on September 7th, the same time of the release of Iron Fist season 2. So ironically, that's how it is with 2 seasons. Starts off from Iron Fist and the Flex Fighters. So how bizarre is that? But other than that, I did get a chance to watch it. So it was only have like 10 episodes. So that was really quite unexpected, because the first season it had like let's see, it was like episode 15. It had like all 15 episodes or 20. I could be wrong about that, but so I'm just gonna go ahead and just say that, being as the first season, the season 2 was actually not that bad. Definitely, it had nothing but typical teen drama moments. There are a lot of humors. There are lots of action. Not to mention there are twists and turns, and not to mention some backup stories that kind of explains it how it is in the first season. So let's start off with the minor spoilers that I'm pretty sure that everybody saw the previews of it. So it definitely picked up right off at the end of the first season that Rook is basically known as the Stretch Monster, and he's been the one who's orchestrated these plans, manipulating everybody, saying that the Flex Fighters are nothing but vigilantes who sabotage and lies, which that's completely bogus, because the fact that Rook is the one is a complete liar and a manipulated son of a. Try to be level with it, but since I'm gonna say it, a lying SOB. How's that? But other than that, he lied and just fabricated to everything, saying how bad the Flex Fighters are and considered as wanted fugitives. Saying that kind of reminds me of the time that in the Marvel universe that the superhuman registration law was now officially legal, that every hero's got to be registered from S.H.I.E.L.D. and be trained properly for the public, and those who don't get to register are considered as the public enemy number 1. You can't save people. You can't stop the crime illegally because you're unregistered, and that's probably what it felt like. It is a little bit of it of the story in season 2. So it definitely picked up right at the end. The Flex Fighters are now working with Dr. Ricia Cleo, or simply as Dr. C, and Blind Strike, which happens to be Raya, who's been working with her for a long time. And right off the bat, start off on the first episode, Kane and his Delta team is trying to put a stop of the gang-related war, is trying to take over the territory. And of course, the Flex Fighters came to save the day, and yet they'd be considered as wanted fugitives, and the public is just trashing them. They're saying that get away from me. You're never but criminals and just trying to feed in your egos and shit like that. So that's what's happening, because they remain to be in the dark, or remain in underground as the Flex Fighters, because Jake, Nate, and Rico are still continue their days in schools as normally, because they had to do it. They want to do it quietly and secretive until they can hatch a plan to expose Rook for who he really is. That was their goal from the start. And now we're going to get to the part where, because there's a lot of secrets and untold stories that was never mentioned in the first season. So, of course, that, we get to see a lot of familiar faces and some new characters that have been added, like Officer Santos, who was injured at the ending of the first season, where the Flex Fighters burst out of the Rook Industries, and which, of course, that Rook just simply modify her with the cybernetic implants in her body, becoming as a deadly cyborg known as Machinima. And hearing that name kind of reminds me of the media brand, which is the Machinima. I don't know. I'm just rambling with words, but that's who she is, because basically she has some nasty grudge against the fighters, and she won't rest until she brings them down for the sake of justice. And then you have Gabe, who's been obsessed, wanted to have Erica, but the fact is that Nate is already have a type relationship with Erica, and he's a bit of a prick. He's just going to just let it go. And in that one episode that they were at the tour, where Jake's father works at, and just couldn't let it go, and just wanted to be, just trying to be an ass, and just trying to win her back, and just was shooting nothing but a blaster of goop. It might have splash on Erica's cheek, and the explosion and the pieces of the multivarious that got bonded to his skin, becoming as the new multivarious, or multivarious 2. Except when the fact it breaks it down to pieces, it also that creates of multi-personalities that represents a Gabe. We're talking about from sensitivity, anger, jealousy, and most of all the sarcasm, because that's basically where all the things that represents Gabe. And yeah, he was cured, so he was been taken care of, and so he's back to his dick attitude. And that's that. And here's an interesting that I noticed throughout season 2. So here comes the spoilers. So fair warning. So if I'm about to say what's going on coming out of my mouth, this is where you're gonna to turn around and just close my video. So we're gonna have a little bit of a 5-second doozy, just to give you a little heads up, because once the 5 seconds up, I'm about to say something that you really don't want to know, and you're probably gonna be ruined, and then you're gonna see that it'll be like, oh wow, so that's what Money was talking about. So 5 seconds begins now. Oh, 5 seconds is up and you're still here? Okay, can't say I didn't warn you, but you asked for it. So Raya was curious about, or simply trying to figure out about, exactly what happened to her parents. So she went off the grid and started finding some answers that she's been wanting to know, because the report said that Raya's parents, along with Dr. Cleo, was on that plane, and mysteriously that was broken down and it crashed. At least that's what everybody believed, but we know that's not really true. So she went to this abandoned house that's been decades, years ago that it hasn't been untouched. And of course, that the stretch monster, aka Rook, was watching of that footage and simply just having the eyesight on the blind strike. And then this dude came out of nowhere. He calls himself the Gentleman, and surprised that he's a mercenary with a cybernetic body, and yeah, he has some really good manners. I mean, legit good manners. So you got a robotic that's fast and agile, and yet really a nice person that you wanted to chat with. And then of course the fight continue on at onto the lab, where she uncovers of some old footages that was almost destroyed, and the footage shows that her parents were there, Dr. Z was there, and guess who was also in there? Rook. Apparently that they were involved of the developing of a project of the Flexarium that they were working on, and that Rook tried to inject himself because he wanted the power, obviously. But unfortunately, that the footage was destroyed, and it activated the self-destruction sequence. And of course, they got out of there alive. And now it was clear that the gentleman was paid and hired by Rook to simply destroy the evidence for chances of the world finding out of Rook's true intention and his true identity, because the gentleman already knows that and saw the footage, obviously. So, and of course, and now we all got ourselves that remember those enthusiastic terrorists with technology known as the Tech Men? Well, guess what? They're back in at 'em, and ready for the world domination as usual. Excuse me. Of course, it is up to Flex Fighters to try to stop them, and all hell's breaking loose with a war between the Flex Fighters, Tech Men, and not to mention the Kane's Delta team is on the pursuit. And of course, Officer Reynolds was starting to ask questions of why he's going like, why pursuing the Flex Fighters when the fact that the Tech Man is on the loose, and he's beginning to kind of curious of why Rook would be on the pursuit on the Flex Fighters when there's other threats that's already escalating to the city. And he was been demoted, and which Kane is now in charge of the team. And that really kind of puts the questions of what's going on. And it's pretty obviously why Rook is on a personal vendetta because of what the Flex Fighters did in his underground base when he was conducting the experimentations that he was doing, and that was all destroyed. This was basically wanted to get back at him as an act of retaliation. But one thing that Rook did not expect it was the fact that the Tech Man has already infiltrated to his company, and they subdued of his transformation. And guess who was their leader of the Tech Men? Kane. Son of a bitch. Can you believe this? So Kane has been working with Tech Men all along. And that's just really bizarre. And of course, the wingspan and the emo mask that have finally made it back to the underground base, along with Rook, And now start to get the questions, begin the answers in the background story of Rook, of how things began from a boy genius with a simple math and the equation to simply bring joy to the life of other people. And he was a gifted kid back then. And of course, that he won a Nobel prizes in schools, and not to mention how he was almost becoming successful, working with this company, which is called the Epsilon. And the bad news is that his mother is very ill, and no medicine that they can cure it. And he was willing to do what he can, hopefully that he can be accepted of this job offering, because it turns out when he's trying to find the address, it just so happens this company is nothing more than a society group, which is basically called the Epsilon. And they were the very plot of Rook's of his intellect mind, and they wanted to have him to be part of the member, but only in one condition: is that you must let go of all the attachments that surround him, including family. And of course, Rook wouldn't want to do that, and they left. He was depressed, and he wanted to try to get back and be part of it. But the worst got even more when he returned to the hospital. His mother passed away. And it was a very deep emotional for him. And Rook only did what he could, simply tried to keep moving forward, and started to develop of his own company, with or without with the Epsilon. And he's teamed up with Raya's parents. Dr. Z was there at that time, and if moments later, as it passed on, he finally started up of his own company with his own tech and his own money. He became the center of the city, and that was thumbs up for him. And then of course a certain messenger from Epsilon wanted to offer that was already been handed to the platter for him since the day they met him. And the fact is that the Rook has started his own company. He didn't need him anymore. So now they're trying to bribe him to simply convince him to join with them. And Rook does not accept threats. And of course, that moment when they were developing the beginning of the Flexarium project, and to simply that would be the key to the answer that could make the lives save a lot easier and better. But the problem was they never tested. And I did see the fact that the color of the Flexarium went from blue to green all of a sudden. So I didn't quite understood that. But other than that, here we go. Of course, that they need more tests to see if it actually could be stable. So there was no time, and that Rook was humbly accepted that he would be he would sacrifice himself for the sake of making excuse me for attempt to try to for self-proclaiming to make things life better by simply sacrificing himself to be as a human test subject. He ejected of the Flexarium, and lo and behold, and that transformed into to the creature, which is bestly known as a stretch monster, with a complete different ego and a personality, and it was a worst case scenario for everybody. So they tried everything they could to try to cure him from the madness that he inflicted upon on himself. And of course, that backfired. And of course, that he went back to as a stretch monster, and he was the one who attacked the plane where Raya's parents and Dr. Well, I think Dr. C was in that plane, but it was her parents that was on that moment, and that he was the one responsible for the death of Raya's parents. And also, I forgot to mention the so-called spiritual leader who has an enhance of a telepathy and mind control, that he has the ability to enter people's minds, and goes into the people's personal memories, that brings from joy to painful. And I should mention that also brings their personals from the Flex Fighters, including the one thing that did kind of got me curious about for Jake's, because I was kind of curious why Jake and his father are the only two in the household. And I was kind of curious about what happened to them, what happened to Jake's mother. And I can see that she's a very good painter. And it was very tragic because he must have some kind of a memory of what happened to her mother. So I'm assuming she died of an illness or in a car accident. But now getting to the point that goes fast forward when Rook's obsession with the Flex Fighters, because everything that happened in season 1, that his personal vendetta is really starting to get questioned with the authorities of the Delta team, and that's where that's when things got south. That the tech men once again raided to his HQ, and yes, I did mention that Kane is their leader of the tech men. But here's a twist. Excuse me, didn't mean to let my spits coming out. But not only he's the leader of tech men, he's also a member of the Epsilon. So, dun dun dun. That's right. He was part of the Epsilon, the Epsilon Society group all along. So now it gets to the point where was his background story was actually really happened back then, or the fact that was just a cover up, something that he made it up to simply to hide of his, excuse me, to hide his true number and his true purpose. And yes, he was also aware about the Rook's double life as the stretch monster. Hell, I mean, he's been monitoring Rook all along, from going places, from his main office to underground sewerage, from different locations. He had him under his eyes the whole time, and it makes sense. And he did mention about the whole thing about the Flexarium project was outdated, that they throw it away like trash. So basically, they've been watching him for a long time. So that's really scary. And the fact that they set this in motion, and hopefully they knew about his obsession, of his personal gains, would hinder him down, and considering that the Rook was now irrelevant, and now that the time is now for them, for the tech men to simply to take over Rook Industries and to take control of the city by means of order. Excuse me, I'm trying to remember, but it simply was control, order, and prosperity, and no fear. That's what's all about from the beginning. It's simply a hostile takeover for their own view of making the world a better place. So now, in the desperations, Rook needs the Flex Fighters' help to simply stop the tech men. And yeah, of course, Jake was not up to this because he can't trust him. But given the circumstances, they have already begun to advance their protocols of having everybody to come into their little office and get an app stamped into their wrist, calling it Smart Tech. It's basically sort of like a digital app that could be as your own phone, internet resources, videos, simply a new way of a new technology that could make things better. But all it is basically is controlling every citizens under the orders of the tech man, and mostly under the pursuit of fighting the Flex Fighters. The numbers was completely back up in the corner. Even though they have a way of counteract it, but they were one step ahead. And now they have a complete control of controlling people's minds. Everybody except Jake. Somehow he was unable. Somehow he was unmind controlled, and I might have missed out on it, but I think he found a way to awaken everybody from Raya to Nathan and Rico, which it was basically simply water. It was simply to regain consciousness and their memories. Now it's become as a 1-point mission is to simply take down tech men. And I forgot to mention that Nathan's girlfriend Erica was exposed of that goop, and she was unconscious, and everybody thought that she was sick. But by checking from Rook's the calculation readings, that she has some unique abilities, in which that, my opinion, she's now becoming as a metahuman. Basically, that she's becoming a pure energy that allows her physical body to be in a conscious state, while her spiritual energy is somewhere out in the outside of the other plane. So Jake tries to put in a sleeping state where he can find Erica, convince her to use her newfound special abilities to save lives of saving the city. So that was become part of as a backup plan. When all else fails, that's where Erica begins to awaken and channel up into what I consider that to me, she's more like a singularity from Marvel Comics of the A-Force. And surprise, surprise, she begins to channel of her power and basically just create a barrier to scramble and dismember every control of every mechanics that the tech men that they built through the satellites. Dismember everything and have every populated people finally regain their consciousness and bring it back to being in a normal state. Cain lost and being outnumbered, and a group of tech men made a dramatic decision and simply just bitch out. They just left Cain to deal with the flex fighters. And here's the thing about that. Because considering that the tech men are part of the Epsilon Society group, they stripped their armor, they stripped their helmets, and not once they never showed their faces because of who they really are. And the scariest thing about it is how many are there part of the Epsilon, and they just blend in the crowd, walking among us. It's just kind of scary to look at it, and when you think about it, because this was quite unexpected, because they never show their faces, and yet they're the most secret organization that ever exists. And so, yeah. So the fight head on, and then of course, Cain lost. Officer Reynolds that had bag and tag him. So end of discussion. It's over. And another twist came along that Jake was right about one thing: never trust Rook, because that snake bastard regains control of his company, and he's going to continue his parlay of saving lives by his own way. And yeah, Dr. C made a promise that if Rook would screw her, that not only that color will put him in a shock, but it will also will reveal the tapes of who Rook really is, and expose to the world that he's nothing but a fraud. But Rook was one step ahead. He already deleted the footages, everything that leads back into the old house. He was one step ahead. Not to mention that he also the overwrite of the controls to his collar. So the sneaky bastard tries to get back at her, and just it was like use a trick bomb or a trick smoke that knock Dr. C unconscious. So either there's a fire going on, or perhaps that there's an incident. So that's how life in the streets of Louisville. Anyways, Blind Strike grabbed Dr. C and got out of that building, and Rook is just smiling because everything is all placed out the way that he wants it, because his last words is, "You can't hide forever this time." So, and at the end, in the aftermath, the Flex Fighters may have saved the city from the tech men, but they're still considered as wanted fugitives. And the fact that they've been tricked by Rook, lied, and pretty obviously he did that. He only did that because he wanted to regain control of his company. So, in other words, they're right back into square root one. Excuse me, you have to excuse myself. It's been a long day. But anyways, they're back into they're back to square one, empty-handed all over again, with no physical proof about Rook, the stretch monster, the Flexarium project, his new project of his new specimens that was destroyed. So they're back with empty-handed again. So And of course, that the fight continues on. And so, because the fight is far from over. And I'm afraid that the worst is now becoming, in the situation is now even much worser. Because if you recall back in season 1, where that he was developing of creating his own army of his perfection with the flexarium, with the newly hyper flexarium that would be completely stable. Well, guess what? He managed to took the time to perfect it, and the results was success. So a perfect molecule stables and a perfect blend to be disguising as humans, and it already begun of the replacements, because as a result, when Officer Richards, who was somehow got promoted to be as a captain of the Delta team during the news conference, and Reynolds returned to his home just to open a closet to see that was the real Reynolds who was tied up, and this was nothing more than a knockoff or clone, simply that was created by Rook to be his personal captain that he created. So that tells me that his project is now up for grabs. And end scene. So now that leads to the question is, will there be a season 3? I would say, yeah. I have a feeling that it's going to happen, because this chapter is far from finished. Because again, it's a really good display of having one of the most famous toy brand, and combines with the comic book franchises to have that in the mix of the superhero theme into the mix of it, because it's all about merchandise, because it happened before back in the 80s, so it's why not try to do something mixed with it. And again, I did enjoy season 2. It was fun to watch. So, and yeah, it is a kids and family theme to watch. So, I mean, if you have kids, if they like superheroes and toys, then this is the alley that they can watch with a Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters, because it's actually pretty decent. So it is kind of has that feel of becoming more like combination of a teen drama, and it becomes a superhero theme in it to make it so that's actually cool. So that's my thoughts about what of the most highlighted that I consider that was the best of it of season 2. So hopefully, will there be season 3? I hope so, because this is, because as I said before, this chapter is far from finished, because this definitely gonna have a happy ending. So that's one thing for sure. So hope you enjoyed of my review video, even though some of you may not like it, and I've just been having trouble trying to get what I get to say, because this is just me trying to be brave enough to express myself and just talk it out of what I think of it, especially when it comes to watching shows on Netflix, because definitely that's something you want to talk about and want to brag about it. What one of the highlight moments of it, from season to season to part 3 or part 4. That's what it's all about. And I enjoy having those moments of it, because it takes a brave man to say what you gotta say, even though you have a learning disability. That doesn't stop you from being who you are. In fact, you should love yourself, and it never hurts to admit it, or just say that I love me. So that's all I got to say. And that's it for the review video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, as I said. So smash those likes if you do enjoy the fact that if this is something you want to watch on Netflix, or if there's other shows that you prefer that you like, or if there's something you want me to watch and do a review video, I'll be more than happy to do that for you, because I got your back. So this is Mighty Avenger signing off. Peace and take care, and I'll catch you all in the next video. And most of all, be mighty. So that's it for now. Now I need to get back on Marvel Spider-Man, because I believe I'm on the final stretch of this game. So I'll catch you on the next one. So take care, guys, and peace out.